Hi, I'm Rick Stivers from YoungMartin'sReels, and today we're going to be working on, well, we're going to be working on two reels but one all at the same time. We have two reels here. This one is a Zebco FL44, and this one is a Zebco Omega 154. The the FL44 has actually a 154 cover on it, but it's the flip and pitch, and I've gone through the schematics for these two, and they are practically the same reel all the way down. On a few parts there is a change in part number, but if you look at the pictures, they're practically identical, and I really think that these parts could be interchanged. So we're going to be taking apart the one that was requested, which is the 154, but if you've got one of these FL44s, you can do it exactly the same way. So we're going to set that off to the side, and we're going to work on this one. It has come to my attention that some people are having difficulty assembling this reel and getting it to turn properly. So I'm going to see if we can't come up with a better and easier way to assemble this reel, and we'll see how it goes. All right. The first thing we're going to do is remove the cover. Then we're going to remove the rotor off of it. Now this was one thing I did find different between this one and the FL44. If you look, you pop this cover off and take a look, the spinner heads are slightly different. This one's got like a cutout on it like they did it to balance it, and this one doesn't have that. So that's one of the few differences I've seen. I don't know that would make any difference in the performance whatsoever, but that was one difference I noted. One other thing I wanted to show you on this FL44, I didn't realize it when I first popped it off, but about 10-15 years ago my dad had me make him some wooden collars to go on these rotors on my wood lathe, and he epoxied them in place to replace the rubber ones or plastic that had dry rotted and fallen off. So this is one from a long time ago that's still out there functioning and still going. Just wanted to let you guys see it. All right, the next thing we're going to do is take out this clip right here. Make sure it doesn't go shooting across the room. All right, and I'm going to try to maintain the reel pretty much in this position the rest of the time. Okay, with that off, we can now take this drag washer off, followed up by this plastic drag washer, or Teflon, depending on which material it actually is. It's probably a Teflon. Next, we're going to pull off the rotor, the spool. On the bottom of the spool, there's another Teflon washer and another one of these Teflon washers, the metal and a Teflon. And then below that we have the clicker and drag assembly plate. With those removed, now let's go ahead and take the handle off. Now we're going to take out these 3 screws. All 3 of these screws are the same length. With that removed, we're going to remove the back cover. That's going to expose our gear train assembly. And this is where people begin to have difficulty. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom in close so you can see the configuration, how this is set up in here. I think we're going to add a little light to the situation. Alright, with this like this, now you can see what's going on in here a little bit better. Now when you look inside here, you're going to have 3 basic components. You've got this washer right here. It's a very thin, almost a shim size washer right here. Beside that, we're going to have this spring, and we're going to get more into that depth in that spring in a little bit. But there you've got this spring, and then you've got this assembly right beside it here. You see it right there. That is your drag assembly for your anti-reverse. So we're going to put all those back in that position, but if you notice, let's see if we can see it in there. Let's see if you can look down in there. Okay, right down in here is your anti-reverse pawl, and it sits inside a little square hole down there, and we're going to put that in, reinstall all this, but prior to doing that, we're going to go ahead and pull all this out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to slide this bearing, or bushing, out the side. Just pry it over. It will usually go. If it doesn't go easily, add a little lubricant to it. Okay? Once that one's done, come to the other side and let's slide it out also. Push it up inside there a little bit. That should release this assembly all the way across. With that done, you should be able to grab the main gear and lift this straight out. Now, you should be able to see that pawl down inside there. Let's turn it so you can see it. It's not very clean, so it makes it pretty hard to see, but that's our pawl assembly right there. And it sits into a square hole. Okay, we're going to lift it out. But see the orientation it's in. Yeah, it's so dirty you can't see it down inside that black case. Let's wipe it off so you can see its shape. There we go. It looks like that, nice and shiny. Okay, and when it's installed, it will sit right down into that hole. Just like that. All right, with that done, we'll go ahead and take that out for now because we don't want to lose it. With that done, we're now going to remove this pin here on your trigger assembly. And for that job, I have this little pin that I've made. And you just get on it. And I need to lose a little more force. I don't want to hammer on it, so we're going to snap it into a pair of vice grips and use that to press with. And push it in. There we go. And the pin comes out. Now, this assembly slides downward. It's in the picture. There we go. Slides downward, comes out, and slides out. And now it's ready for cleaning. Now, with that done, we can remove this assembly. The only thing that leaves in there is this switch assembly over here. And this one doesn't want to turn. So, let's give it a little help. Wow. Alright, we may have to help that a little bit. Okay. There is a C-clip right down in here. We're going to take that C-clip and pop it out. Okay, don't lose it. And it is not your standard C-clip by any means. If you look at it, it's actually a bent C-clip. And it goes in there with the bend facing over towards the handle of the switch. With that off, you should hopefully be able to push this through. There we go. Let's slide that all the way out. That one definitely needed to come out. Normally, this is something you wouldn't have to take off. But it's so caked up full of dirt and grease in there that it didn't want to switch back and forth. So we've taken it out. We're going to clean up the hole that it goes in. The other one is your drag. We don't really need to take that out as long as it's spinning free. And what I mean by spinning free is you have to be able to turn it this way, but at the same time, you should be able to put a screwdriver on that screw head and be able to turn the screw head without it moving the knob. and you can. So that one we're going to leave in place. And on the bottom side over here, we've got a bearing right here. And we're going to take that bearing and we're going to pop it out of there. Pushing out from the inside, from the front. Okay, with the bearing out, we can now clean it. That has all the parts off that we're going to remove. And what we're going to do, I'm going to back out. I'm going to spray everything down with WD-40, which is a very good penetrant and cleaner. And then we're going to go through and scrub all these parts and get them all nice and clean. And then we're going to come back and reassemble everything. So we're going to be on silent mode, fast forward while we clean it. And when we come back, I'll go back to regular mode while we reassemble everything. Oh, let's go ahead and go through this real quick. All right, this is the assembly I was explaining to you a while ago. This is your anti-reverse. And first thing we've got here is this washer, which is almost a shim. It's really, really thin. Okay, then you've got this spring assembly right here. Okay, and the spring is not installed properly. How do you like that? You can see this clip on the spring right here? That should be over here in this slot right there. Okay, with that in the slot, the rest of the spring should pull down and over it. Like so, to hold it in place, and then the washer goes over it. So the spring goes in the slot, down to the post. You see? Back it up. In the slot, down to the post, comes out and around, and then squares off here, and ends up right there. All right, this little tab right here is what's going to fit inside the anti-reverse pawl right there. Okay? As it moves, okay, it's what's going to turn that and make it come in and lock. When it goes this direction, it will disengage, and when it goes this direction, it will engage. All right, so let's take this all apart. We're going to clean everything up, re-lubricate, re-grease, inspect everything, inspect the gears. The gears all look really good. So we're going to clean this up and be back with you in just a few moments. But in the meantime, we're going to silent mode. All right, now we're ready to assemble. First thing we're going to do is put the bearing back in, the back of it here. We're going to lubricate that with some oil. It's a shielded bearing, but it's not a sealed bearing. So we lubricate it, slip it in the hole. All right, we're going to start off by making sure that our pinion gear slides easily on the shaft. And then we're going to go ahead and insert it into the frame. Once we do that, what we want to do is we want to make sure that this thing's going to hold in here tightly so that it can't move and doesn't create problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and screw the rotor back on, like so, and see if that doesn't hold the axle shaft in there tighter. And this anti-reverse dog is going to fit in there just like this. All right, and it becomes a pivot point. It's going to fit right on this little bent piece of metal right here. Okay, so you've got to slide all that in so that it fits right in there so that that can pivot. All right, it doesn't do any good to try to stick this on there and try to stick it in. It doesn't work very well that way. I've tried it before and had very little success. All right, so let's put this back in, anti-reverse, long into the rear. Make sure it can pivot. All right, once we've installed the axle and put the spinner on, or the rotor, and in which case with a Zebco, this is called a spinner head. All right, we're going to install our bushings on the sides, and you'll notice these little pins that there's on each side, the flat spots here. Slide this in, but don't slide it all the way in. Just slide it in just a little bit, enough so that we can get things lined up when we need it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Slide that one in. Okay. We've got this axle held in place by the spinner head. Now, let's assemble this crankshaft assembly. Okay, crankshaft. Anti-reverse plate. Then comes your spring. Make sure the end of the spring is in the hole, like so. And then you can stretch the spring down over the post, like so. That should hold it in place. I'm going to recommend you add a little bit of grease if you haven't already done so, and reinstall this washer, like that. Now, when you go to sit this down in here, okay, get a good look here. This is your anti-reverse override switch over here. And this notch right here is what's going to override the anti-reverse. So what you want to do, and you got to be able to do this without knocking all of this off of this pin. Okay, you want that notch there, the big notch, to go over that anti-reverse override switch. Okay, then you want the rest of it to drop. If you've got that and you've got your anti-reverse override or anti-reverse pawl in place, everything should just drop into place. Then you can squeeze your bushings in like so. This one's a little bit crooked, so it's not going in all the way. Pins aren't lining. There we go. Okay, now with that in, there should be no messed up gearing. All right, it should be turning just fine. So when you're over here on this position, there you go. There shouldn't be any grinding gears or jamming, none of that. All that should work fine. All right, the rest of this is all going to go back together normally. We're going to reverse this spinner head back off because the axle shaft has been held in place now, and everything else should go back in. We'll put this lever in, drop the pin back in. All right. Next comes, all this is back together. Let's put some grease on our gear. Go ahead one more time and give it a little twist to make sure the grease is going everywhere that it should, and it is. All right. Slip this back into the case. Put your screws back in. All right, put this drag plate back on, and we want to set it so that the deep end, the deep side, is over here in the adjuster. The shallow side goes over here in the pin, like so. Drag washer on, the metal one. Then comes your Teflon. Then go ahead and slide your spool back on. And you've got two more drag washers here, the Teflon and the metal. I've got them both in there together at the same time. Those go on. Now we're going to put the clip back on, like so. Screw the spinner head back on. All right, and that is turning the handle. So we'll put that in so that we can tighten it down. All right. We're going to put our nut back on the other side. We'll get our line so we can test our drag. Go ahead and feed it through. Now I may be finishing this video with a completely different reel than I started off with. That's because this is a reshoot due to problems that some people had had. And turn the anti-reverse lever to on. There we go. We have drag. We're going to tighten the drag. Very good. Loosen the drag. Good. We have anti-reverse. And we have anti-reverse turned off. There we go. And it's all working as advertised. All right. So at this point, we're going to splice back into the original video and finish it out. I hope that this takes care of the problems that people are having getting the gearing to go back in. And I hope you find this useful. If anybody out there likes this video, please hit the like button. If you dislike it, hey, that's great. Hit the dislike button and tell me why you dislike it. Either way, I love to see the comments. I'm meeting all kinds of people across the world. So if you want to see more like this, hit the subscribe button. And for Young Martin's Reel, this is Rick Stivers signing out.